So the calendar has flipped to 2024 and we're getting closer to the NBA All-Star Game. We all know that voting for NBA starters in the All-Star Game is half decided by fans and it's kind of just a popularity contest. And for that reason, this video is not going to be me predicting who I think is going to be an All-Star starter or an All-Star reserve, but instead, if I was the dictator of the NBA, who would my All-Star selections be? Also remember that this year the NBA decided to go away from the captain's draft they've employed for the last few years, and we're back to the normal East versus West format. And unlike the All-NBA teams, which are now positionless, the All-Star teams are still separated by backcourt and frontcourt players. Let's start with the Eastern Conference and the backcourt starters. This is already going to cause controversy so early into the video because there are like 6 players you could argue deserve these 2 starting spots. The first one I feel pretty confident in, and that's my selection of Tyrese Halliburton. He's been unbelievable so far this season on a surprisingly good Pacers team. Now by the time you see this video, many of these stats might be a little bit outdated. I'm recording this on January 16th, but as of now, the Indiana Pacers are 23-17 and right in the thick of the Eastern Conference playoff race. Tyrese Halliburton is averaging over 24 points on nearly 50-40-90 splits. So yeah, he's a pretty elite scorer. But now let's add in the fact that he's averaging 12.5 assists per game. If the season ended today, that would be top 15 of all time in terms of assists per game, only behind seasons of John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, Kevin Porter, and Magic Johnson. He's currently out with a hamstring sprain, but the hope is that he returns soon, and assuming he does, he absolutely deserves a starting spot. For my second choice, I'm gonna go with Damian Lillard. Now this is where you could put a lot of guys, and I wouldn't blame you if you said like 3 other names here, but as you're gonna see throughout this list, I do value winning a lot in my picks. Damian Lillard had a bit of a figuring it out period with the Bucks at the beginning of the year, but overall he's been pretty good. It's not like it's been Damian Lillard's best season thus far, but the Bucks are still the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference, and he's averaging 25 points and 7 assists, so I think he's done just enough to earn the starting nod. And the frontcourt starters in the Eastern Conference, as they've been for the last couple years, are pretty cut and dry. It's going to be Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid. It's going to be really hard for anyone to infiltrate this top 3 in the East frontcourt for at least the next couple years. Jason Tatum is averaging 27 points per game, which is less than the 30 he averaged last season, but that's partly due to all the weapons the Celtics have on offense now. The Celtics as a team look really good, comfortably in first place in the Eastern Conference, and in my mind the obvious favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference. Giannis Antetokounmpo, to me, is easily the 2nd best player in basketball. He's averaging about 31 points, 11.5 rebounds, 6 assists, and over a steal and over a block for the Milwaukee Bucks. He can do it all. Well, I guess shoot 3-pointers, but besides that, pretty much everything. I'm a little bit concerned about Giannis as the season goes on. He's played the most minutes he has in 6 years, and it seems like the Bucks are asking him to run into the paint and draw contact more often than they have in previous regular seasons, but because of that, he's putting up some pretty crazy stats. And Joel Embiid is an easy pick here too. Now I don't love watching Joel Embiid play sometimes. I don't like how he moaned his way to an MVP last season, but this season has been special. I mean, he's averaging more points than minutes. I think I saw a stat that like only Wilt Chamberlain has done that before in his 50-point per game season. He's averaging 34.9 points, which would be the most since James Harden in 2020. And also, without Harden on his team this year, he's averaging 6 assists per game too, which is by far a career high. He has missed a few games recently, but the 76ers have stayed in the top 3 of the Eastern Conference, and Joel Embiid is an all-star starter. For the backcourt reserves in the Eastern Conference, we still have some tough decisions as well. There are still a ton of deserving guards, and your favorite card might be left to a wild card spot. For my first selection here for the reserves, I'm gonna go with Jalen Brunson. It's been about 18 months since the Knicks signed Jalen Brunson to a 4-year, $104 million contract, what was deemed an overpay by many NBA fans. He had never been the number 1 guy on a team. He had never averaged over 16.3 points per game in a season, but he has surpassed just about everyone's expectations in New York. he's looking to lead the Knicks to a second straight playoff berth, and is doing this averaging a team-high 26 points and 6.5 assists per game. And for my other backcourt reserve, I'm going to go with... Now, Cavaliers fans and Hawks fans, don't crucify me. There are still wildcard spots. I guess that's a bit of a spoiler for the wildcards, but whatever. I just think Tyrese Maxey has been as impactful as those two guys, while being on a better team record-wise. Tyrese Maxey has made continuous improvements every year of his career, and it looks like the 76ers might have finally found their second star next to Joel Embiid, and I'm going to give him the nod as the second backcourt reserve. For my frontcourt reserves, there are two players I really like here, and a third player that was really hard to make a decision on. Let me start with Paolo Banchero. The 2022 first overall pick has had an outstanding sophomore season, completely foregoing the common sophomore slump for young NBA players. To this point in the season, he's not missed a single game, and he's been averaging 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists for a young, fun Magic team that's going to be right in the thick of things come playoff time. This, for me, was a really easy decision. I also think that Bam Adebayo is a pretty easy choice as well. The stats obviously don't fly off the paper for Bam Adebayo, but the Heat deserve at least one All-Star for once again being right in the middle of the East playoff picture, irregardless of the injuries they've had and the players they lost this offseason. Bam has averaged a career-high 21.7 points per night, along with 11 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. You could flip Jimmy Butler in for the spot as well, but Jimmy Butler's once again coasting in the regular season, and he's missed more games than Bam Adebayo, so I'm going to stick with Bam here. Now this third spot is where I had some trouble. There were a few people who I was debating between for this last spot. I thought about Julius Randle, thought about including both Bam and Jimmy Butler, but I eventually realized the Celtics, the best team in the NBA by record, probably deserved a second All-Star. But that opened up a whole new can of worms. Should that be Jaylen Brown, who definitely has more name value for the All-Star game? Kristaps Porzingis, who's been amazing for this team? Maybe even a sneaky pick in Derek White? At the end of the day, I decided to go with Kristaps Porzingis. It's probably not where you thought I was going. Jaylen Brown has averaged 23 points per game this season, but in terms of scoring, Porzingis is not far behind, averaging 19 points per game. Porzingis has shot efficiently, played outstanding defense, averaging almost 2 blocks per game, and he's just been exactly what the Boston Celtics needed. I would understand if you want to put Jaylen Brown here, but this last spot feels like it needs to be a second Boston Celtic. Now, as I kind of spoiled already in the backcourt reserves, there are two players who I think definitely deserve these wildcard spots, Donovan Mitchell and Trae Young. Donovan Mitchell, it feels like pretty quietly is having a really good season. He's averaged 28 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 6 assists per night on solid efficiency. He's played 29 games for a Cavalier team that's been ravaged by injuries, but they've been surprisingly good since Darius Garland and Evan Mobley have been out, and he's managed to lead them to a 23-15 record to this point in the season. Trae Young has not quite had the same team success, and as you may have seen from previous videos on the channel, I'm not a huge fan of Trae Young's game. And no, that's not just because I'm a Knicks fan, I just think he's an empty stats player to a certain degree. Still, it is hard to ignore the fact he's averaged 27.5 points per game and almost 11 assists, even if it's on subpar efficiency for a subpar team. This is just enough to get him the second wildcard spot on my All-Star ballot. Finally, as we wrap up the Eastern Conference, I would like to note that pretty much every year there is at least one injury replacement for someone who cannot participate in the All-Star game. So I will note who I think would be the first injury replacement for each conference. And for the Eastern Conference, I'm going to pick Julius Randle. Randle started off the season extremely poorly, averaging under 20 points per game on less than 35% shooting for a stretch of time, but people forget he was coming off off-season ankle surgery, and by the time we got to December, he was one of the best players in the league. The Randle haters will talk to you about his shot selection, his lack of effort at times, and those things are true. But you cannot deny he is the 1A or 1B on a playoff caliber team, while averaging 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. I thought about Jimmy Butler for this spot as well, but the key differentiator for me was that Randle has played 40 games, while Jimmy Butler has only played 25. So those are all my picks for the Eastern Conference. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with my picks. And now let's flip it over to the Western Conference, where we once again have some hard decisions to make in the backcourt. There's just so much guard talent in the NBA right now, and being limited to just 2 starting and 2 reserve spots for the backcourt causes me to make some really hard decisions. However, first, I feel like there is a no-doubter in the backcourt, and that is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SJ has emerged as one of the stars of the present and the future of the NBA. He's followed up his 2023 season by being even better in 2024, averaging 31.5 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. He's doing this shooting 56% from the field, which is unheard of for a guard, and also nearly leading the league in steals. If that's not enough for you, he's commandeering a 27-12 Oklahoma City Thunder team that is a near lock to make the Western Conference playoffs. My other choice for a backcourt starter is Luka Doncic. He is once again carrying the Dallas Mavericks as he's done for most of his career. You can always count on Luka for some crazy stat line when you're scrolling through Instagram, like this one or this one. Despite the fact Kyrie Irving has only played in like 25 games, the Mavericks are still 24-17 and in the race for a home playoff series pretty much entirely due to the play of Luka Doncic. For the frontcourt starters, I will start with the most obvious choice. The 2-time MVP, reigning Finals MVP, and even the current MVP frontrunner, Nikola Jokic. He's once again having an absurd season. In just 33 minutes per game, he's averaging 25.5 points, almost 12 rebounds, and 9.3 assists. I really want to see him average a triple-double. He was so close last year, but it looks like he's going to fall just short in the assists column once again. But this one is simple. The Nuggets are good, Jokic is great. Yeah, you guys don't need any explanation. You guys know ball. The other 2 frontcourt starters kinda go against my previous qualifications of valuing team success, but I can't find it in me to not have these guys as starters. And you can probably guess the 2 players I'm talking about here, and that is LeBron James and Kevin Durant. LeBron James obviously entering his age 39 season, his 21st season in the NBA, is still playing at an all-star level. And it's pretty unbelievable he's being asked to play 35 minutes a game, be a primary creator for the struggling Los Angeles Lakers team. He's being asked to do pretty much everything. He's averaging 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 7.5 assists per game. He's even really found his 3-point stroke, but the Lakers are under 500 once again. Still, these stats, coupled with his legacy, are definitely enough to make him an all-star starter. And obviously not to the extent of LeBron, but what Kevin Durant is doing in his age 35 season is pretty impressive as well. Durant is averaging 29 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and 6 assists on outstanding 53-47 splits. The Phoenix Suns have been up and down all year, in large part due to all of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and especially Bradley Beal missing some time, but at least for now, all 3 are healthy, and the Suns are climbing back into the Western Conference playoff picture at 21-18. For the backcourt reserves, there are so many guards in the NBA that are really elevating themselves to the superstar tier, and De'Aaron Fox is no exception. At one point this season, he was averaging 30 points per game, but as of now, he is down to a lowly 27.8 points per game. What a bum. But in all seriousness, after a slow start where De'Aaron Fox was injured, the Sacramento Kings have been really good, currently in 5th place at 23-16. Fox and Sabonis are the co-stars of this team, but De'Aaron Fox is the motor for this amazing offense as the ball handler and primary scorer. And kind of as a surprise for the second backcourt reserve spot here, I'm actually going to go with Devin Booker. Now I know I have not said Stephen Curry's name yet, but I think all 4 players I have already named are having better statistical seasons on better teams. Are all these players better than Steph Curry? No. But this is the 2024 All-Star roster, and it only takes into account this season. This season, Devin Booker is averaging almost 27 points and a career-high 7.7 assists, which is really impressive. He is the de facto point guard for the Suns team that, like I said, seems to be figuring it out now, so I'm gonna give him the slight edge. For the front court reserves, I do like my 3 picks, but there is just so much talent in the Western Conference this year. It's so deep, especially in the front court spots, so there are going to be some tough cuts to make. My first selection here is Kawhi Leonard. Ever since the James Harden trade, the Los Angeles Clippers have been on fire. After a terrible start to the season, they've shot up to 4th place in the Western Conference with a 25-14 record. Harden was the catalyst for this change, but Kawhi Leonard has been the engine. He's averaging 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game thus far on 52-44 splits. And on top of that, Kawhi Leonard has only missed 4 games thus far this season, so he definitely deserves an All-Star appearance. Secondly, I'm going to go with Domantas Sabonis. There is no way anyone can leave him off of their balance. He has been outstanding. He has fit the Nikola Jokic light mold for a while now, but every year it seems like he's getting a little bit closer to Nikola Jokic. This season he's averaging over 20 points per game for just the 2nd time in his career, while leading the league with 12.7 rebounds per game and averaging almost 8 assists. The Kings seem like they will have a pair of All-Stars for the better part of the 2020s, and honestly, you Kings fans deserve that. And this third selection was a little bit harder, but I decided to go with Anthony Edwards. The fact that the Timberwolves are in 1st place in the Western Conference pretty much necessitates that Anthony Edwards gets this spot. He has been awesome this year too, so it's not like he's just getting it by default. He's averaging a career-high 26 points per game to go along with 5.5 rebounds and 5 assists on pretty efficient splits for a high-volume guard. A few weeks ago, mainly just before Christmas, I was debating whether to have Stephen Curry as a starter. The Warriors seemed like they were starting to figure it out, and Steph Curry's stats were really good. But since then, the Warriors have again been mired in a slump, and Curry's had some lackluster performances. I think he's had 2 games since Christmas where he hasn't had a single 3-pointer. It seems crazy to have this as a knock on Curry, but only for the 2nd full season of his career, he's under 40% from 3. And Curry's been fine. I don't blame him for the Warriors' struggles, but his performance and the Warriors' performance as a whole, I think Steph Curry slides in as a wild card. Now, he won't actually end up being a wild card because of his name value, but like I said, this is my ballot, not my predictions for the actual All-Star roster. And then this last wild card position is so hard to fill. There are still at least 4 players I would like to name as All-Stars in the Western Conference, but only 1 wild card spot left. Earlier in January, I was considering Brandon Ingram, but after a tough few weeks, he's not really in the running for me anymore. Zion has also played 33 games, so you could consider him. He has slightly better stats than Ingram, but I still think there are some better candidates. Alperen Şengün deserves an appearance, averaging 22, 9, and 5 for a respectable Rockets team. How Domantas Sabonis is like Nikola Jokic light, Alperen Şengün is Domantas Sabonis light. Even Chet Holmgren as a rookie deserves an appearance too. His impact is definitely at an all-star level, but his counting stats just aren't there yet. And Lauri Markkanen deserves a nod, leading the red-hot Jazz right now. Cat or Gobert deserve a nod too, to give the West leading Timberwolves a 2nd all-star. The list just keeps going on. But at the end of the day, the all-star game is mostly about stats. So Anthony Davis is going to get my last nod for the sub-500 Lakers. He's averaging 25 points, 12 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2.5 blocks in 39 games played for the Lakers. The combination of name value and the pretty unreal stats he's putting up is enough to give him the wild card spot, despite a ton of other worthy candidates. In terms of injury replacements, the 2 players I listed I think deserve an appearance most, if/when someone is unable to participate in the All-Star game, are Alperen Şengün and Lauri Markkanen. It feels weird for the West leading Timberwolves to only have 1 All-Star, but it has been done before, and while Rudy Gobert is playing at a DPOY level and Cat has been a good second option, I think Şengün and Lauri Markkanen are more worthy members. But let me know what you guys think. Obviously, everyone's going to have different opinions, and I expect the comments to say I'm stupid or I don't know ball, but these are my opinions. Let me know in the comments how you would change my ballot. This has been the Sports Ball Network, and I will see you guys in the next basketball video. Peace.